The number of injured in Gaza has reached a milestone. Gaza's Health Ministry says more than 150,000 Palestinians have been wounded in 22 months of conflict. That's one in every 14 people living across the Gaza Strip. 18,500 Palestinians will need long-term rehabilitation, and 4,700 people have had one or more limbs amputated as a result of their injuries. Well, for more on this, we're joined by Victoria Rose, who is a consultant plastic surgeon who's recently returned from Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis. She joins us now from London. Thank you so much for being with us. First of all, can you just talk us through the scale of what you dealt with while you were there? Just the sheer number of injured is simply staggering, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely incredible, and it's relentless. When we were there, we were operating every day without a break for the 24 days. We were averaging about 12 patients, or I was averaging about 12 patients a day, and my colleagues had separate operating lists as well. I mean, the bulk of what we saw initially was all bomb blast injuries, and then in the latter part of the trip, we started to see a lot of the gunshot wounds from the GHF shootings.
Yeah, can you just talk us through the injuries that you believe that a lot of people faced while trying to get aid at those GHF facilities?
Well, so the bulk of the injuries at the first half of the trip, and certainly what we'd seen when we'd been in August, were blast injuries. So when a bomb goes off, that can affect you in multiple ways. The first injury comes from that initial shock wave. So you tend to see things like ruptured eardrums. We see some traumatic brain injury and ruptured abdomen, that sort of thing. The force of that wave often can displace a body, so it can pick you up and throw you against something. So you see a lot of blunt trauma as well. Then you have the heat that's generated by the explosion, or anything that catches fire as a result of the explosion. And that accounts for the very high rates of burns that we were seeing, particularly quite high percentage burns. And then you have the shrapnel injuries. So whatever is around you when the bomb goes off is weaponized and ejected at very high velocity, and that will hit you. And if it hits you in the head or abdomen or chest, it tends to be a fatal injury. If it hits you in a limb, it tends to destroy part of the skin, removing skin and muscle, and often fracturing the bone underneath or removing parts of the bone underneath. And we tended to see in the August a lot of shrapnel wounds. In the last trip that we've just done in May and June, we saw a lot of amputations. And I think really what we're seeing now is that the population is displaced and everybody is living in tents. And this is where the bombs are going off. So there is no protection. So now the traumatic injuries are much more severe. So we were seeing children with knees missing, with feet missing, with hands missing, with large chunks taken out of their faces, really, really significant injuries that many of them didn't survive from.
Obviously, you're talking there about the immediate care that you're able to give people, but what about the long-term struggles all of these injured will face? Because 18,000 Palestinians will need long-term rehabilitation. What facilities, what care can and will they have?
Well, as you know, there's virtually no infrastructure left. I think 69% of all buildings in Gaza have been destroyed, and 94% of all hospitals have been completely or partially destroyed. And that will include all the physiotherapy centres. So there really is no way that we are going to be able to rehabilitate these patients currently in the situation that Gaza finds itself in. Most of them actually need secondary surgery. So a lot of what we do when we're out there is the limb-saving surgery, so cleaning the wounds and getting them closed. But a lot of that involves shortening bones, performing operations that will need a second part to restore function. And that really is the worry, is that there are a lot of people already waiting for those surgeries, and we just don't know where they are, and we don't have the facilities to operate on them.
And obviously exacerbating the problem, this famine and starvation is becoming even more widespread right across Gaza. That's difficult for those who were previously healthy, but how much more of a toll does that take on those people that are trying to recover from these injuries that you're describing?
Well, it's absolutely huge, because the pictures that we're seeing now are showing very late stage malnutrition that is basically unsurvivable from. One of the first things that happens when malnutrition sets in is that the immune system is suppressed. So you do not have the ability to mount an immune response. So what we've seen is infection rates are soaring, and coupled with the fact that aid is not getting in any form. So not only are we not seeing adequate food supplies, we're not seeing adequate medical supplies. And certainly when we were there in June, we did not have the antibiotics that we required to fight these sorts of infections. So it sort of compounds the problem, the malnutrition, the lack of aid. It's making these injuries unsurvivable.
Thank you so much for your time and your insight into the realities of trying to work in Gaza at this point in time. Victoria Rose for us in London. Thank you.
Don't miss out the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.